Rain fell over Seattle like a quiet warning, a soft drumbeat against windows and streets that were already glowing under the city lights. Ethan Carter stepped out of his car, pulled his jacket tighter, and walked toward the Bennett home with the familiar sense of comfort he always felt around Mark and Olivia. They were the closest thing he had to family these days, and he relied on that closeness more than he wanted to admit. Mark had called earlier in the afternoon, asking for help finishing a big marketing presentation. Ethan didn't hesitate. Helping Mark always felt natural, almost effortless. And it gave him something to focus on, something other than the restlessness that had been following him for months. He knocked, and the door opened before he got the chance to lower his hand. Mark stood there, sleeves rolled up, hair messy from stress, giving a tired grin. "Man, am I glad you're here," he said, inside. The house felt warm, familiar, filled with the soft jazz music Olivia liked to play in the evenings. Ethan's shoulders relaxed the moment he stepped inside, even though he already knew Olivia wasn't home. She was downtown at a community fundraiser, something she volunteered for every year. She had mentioned it to Ethan earlier that week, and he had listened with the same calm attention he always gave her. He admired the way she cared about people, though he rarely said it out loud. For hours, he and Mark worked in the living room, laptops open. Notes spread across the coffee table, the storm outside growing heavier. They focused hard, not wasting a minute, moving quickly through slides, rewriting lines, adjusting designs. The pressure of the upcoming pitch pushed them forward at full speed. When they finally finished, Mark leaned back with a long exhale, rubbing his eyes. "I don't know how I'd do this without you." "You'd manage," Ethan said, though his voice lacked conviction. He wasn't great at accepting praise. It always made him feel a little out of place. Mark studied him for a moment, his expression changing. "You good?" he asked. "You've been acting. Uff. Like you're carrying something heavy." Ethan looked away, suddenly aware of how quiet the room felt now that the work was done. The problem was simple, yet impossible to explain. He had been feeling disconnected from his own life, floating, unsteady, unsure of what he was supposed to do next. And the only two people who made him feel grounded were Mark and Olivia. "Just been overwhelmed," Ethan said, voice low. "Nothing big." Mark didn't buy it. "Overwhelmed about what?" Ethan hesitated. Opening up wasn't something he liked to do. But tonight, maybe because of the rain or the late hour or the fact that Mark was looking at him like a real friend who wasn't going to run away, Ethan let the truth slip out. "I feel like everything is changing around me," he said. "Like I'm falling behind. Like everyone's moving forward and I'm stuck in one place." Mark nodded slowly, as if he had been expecting something like this. "Olivia said she was worried about you," he admitted. "She said the two of you have been talking more lately." That comment made Ethan tense for reasons he couldn't fully explain. "I don't want to cause problems," he said quickly. "I never meant relax." Mark cut in with a calm, steady voice. "It's not a problem. You're our friend. You're allowed to feel things. You're allowed to go through stuff." The kindness in Mark's tone almost made Ethan uncomfortable. He didn't know how to hold that kind of empathy. He didn't know how to believe it belonged to him just then. The sound of a key turning broke the quiet. The front door opened. Olivia stepped in with rain-damp hair, cheeks flushed from the cold, and a gentle smile that faded the moment she saw Ethan and Mark sitting close, deep in conversation, the room dim and emotional. She stopped in the doorway. "What's going on?" Her voice wasn't accusing. It was soft, almost worried. Ethan stood so fast he knocked a pen off the table. "Olivia, this isn't, we were just—" Mark rested a hand on Ethan's arm, steadying him before he spiraled into unnecessary explanations. "He's fine," Mark told her. "We were talking about things he's dealing with." Olivia's expression softened instantly. She stepped closer, her coat still dripping rain onto the hardwood floor. "Ethan, why didn't you say something? You don't have to hide things from us." Those words hit harder than she knew. Ethan's voice nearly cracked. "I don't want to make anything complicated." Before Olivia could respond, footsteps echoed from the hallway. More casual, lighter, completely out of rhythm with the intensity in the room. A figure appeared, Ava Bennett Mark's younger sister walked in wearing headphones around her neck, dressed in a simple sweater and jeans, confidence radiating off her in a way that always surprised Ethan. She had moved in temporarily while searching for her own place after relocating to Seattle for a job in graphic design. Ava took in the scene with raised brows and a mischievous smile. "Wow," she said lightly. "Did I walk into a therapy session or something?" Olivia gave her a tired look. "Ava, not now." Ava ignored it. She walked to the back of the couch and leaned over it casually, eyes flicking between Ethan and Mark. "You guys look like you've been talking about some deep stuff. Should I take notes?" Her teasing was normal, but tonight it felt sharper against the emotional atmosphere. Mark rolled his eyes. "Can you be serious for 2 minutes?" Ava grinned. "I am serious. Ethan looks like someone just asked him to solve life." Ethan felt heat rise to his face. "It's not he started, but the words came out wrong." Olivia stepped forward, closing the small distance between them. "Hey," she said softly. "Breathe. We're not judging you. We just want to understand." Before Ethan could collect himself, Ava added, "Well, I understand him just fine." Olivia and Mark turned toward her at the same time. Ethan blinked in confusion. "You do?" Ava nodded, her expression losing the teasing edge. "Yeah, you look like someone who's been holding things in for too long. People like you carry everything quietly until you get tired of pretending you're fine." Ethan didn't know how to respond to that. It felt too accurate. Too sudden. Mark crossed his arms. "Since when are you a mind reader?" Ava shrugged, her tone shifting to something far gentler. "Since I've been there myself." The room fell silent for a moment. It wasn't a dramatic silence, just soft and real. Like everyone realized the conversation had reached a place they hadn't planned for. Olivia stepped closer to Ethan until she stood just a foot away. "You're not alone," she said. "Not with us." Mark nodded in agreement. "You don't have to carry everything by yourself," Ava added quietly. "And you don't have to feel like you don't belong. Some people actually want you around." The rain outside began to lighten, turning from a heavy storm into a soft drizzle. The house felt warmer, filled with something new: understanding, connection, honesty. Ethan looked at the three of them, not sure what he had walked into or what he had accidentally started. He had come here just to help Mark with a presentation, but somehow the night had pulled open emotions he had kept hidden for years. For the first time, he wasn't afraid to admit how lost he felt. For the first time, he wasn't trying to pretend. And for the first time, he wasn't running from the people who cared about him. But he knew this night was only the beginning, because something had shifted quietly but deeply between all four of them, and none of them knew where it would lead. The rain had softened to a gentle drizzle, tapping lightly against the windows of the Bennett home. Inside, the living room was still warm, filled with the lingering energy of confessions, understanding, and unspoken questions. Ethan sat on the edge of the couch, heart still racing, aware that everything had shifted in the last hour. The work that had brought him here now felt distant. The emotional storm was far more urgent, far more consuming. Ava, leaning casually against the back of the couch, finally broke the silence. "So," she said, her tone light but knowing, "are we going to talk about what's really going on? Or are we pretending it's all business?" Her eyes flicked to Ethan, mischievous but not cruel. There was a softness there too, a sense that she genuinely wanted to understand him. Ethan shook his head, words caught in his throat. He hadn't expected to be at the center of this attention, and the way Ava looked at him felt strange, almost magnetic. He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it again. "It's complicated," he said finally. "I'm not sure I can explain it." Olivia, standing near the window, dropped her coat onto a chair and crossed the room with quiet grace. "You don't have to explain everything at once," she said, her voice steady, comforting. "Just start somewhere. We're listening." Mark, still seated beside Ethan, leaned forward. "Yeah, just tell us what you're feeling. You don't need to sugarcoat it." Ethan looked at the three of them, the calm steadiness of Mark, the warmth of Olivia. And the unexpected directness of Avon felt a mix of emotions. Relief, because he no longer had to hide. Nervousness, because now he couldn't. He swallowed hard and began, "I've been feeling lost. Like I'm not moving forward while everyone else has a plan, a path. And sometimes I feel like I'm floating, like I don't belong anywhere." Livia's eyes softened. She stepped closer, placing a hand on his arm, a gentle reassurance. "Ethan, you belong with people who care about you. That's not wrong, and it doesn't make you weak." Ava, still leaning against the couch, nodded slowly. "Yeah, and you don't have to figure it all out alone. Some people just need to be reminded that others are paying attention, that they matter." Mark added, "Sometimes admitting you need support is the bravest thing you can do. You've been carrying all of this quietly, and it shows courage to let it out now." Ethan felt a lump in his throat. He had always thought that expressing vulnerability made him weak. But here, with them, he realized it made him human. For years, he had tried to hide the confusion, the anxiety, the quiet ache of feeling like an outsider even among friends. And now, for the first time, he wasn't alone in it. Olivia took a step back and gave him a small, reassuring smile. "Feelings aren't something you can turn off. It's okay to be overwhelmed. What matters is what you do with them once you acknowledge them." Ava's gaze lingered on Ethan, softer now, less teasing. "You have a way of seeing things differently. Like you notice the small things that others miss. That makes you important, even if you don't see it yourself." Ethan looked down at his hands, feeling warmth spread through his chest. He had never considered that anyone truly noticed him in that way. Mark, Olivia, Avat, they all saw pieces of him he hadn't shared with the world. It was overwhelming, yet comforting. The conversation shifted naturally, as it always did when honesty replaced pretense. They talked about childhood memories, the quirks that made them who they were, the challenges of recent months, and the simple moments that made life feel meaningful. Every word, every shared glance, seemed to untangle the tension that had built up inside Ethan for so long. Ava finally spoke again, breaking the emotional rhythm with a teasing smile. "You know, Ethan, you're lucky. Most people would never admit how much they struggle. You're raw, honest, and somehow you make it look appealing." Ethan chuckled, a little embarrassed, a little relieved. "I'm not sure appealing is the right word." Olivia laughed softly, a warm, melodic sound that filled the room. "You're appealing in the sense that people care about you, in the sense that your honesty matters. That's more than enough." Mark leaned back, shaking his head in amusement. "This is turning into some kind of therapy session, isn't it?" "It's real conversation," Ava replied simply. "Not pretending. Not small talk, just real." For a moment, Ethan looked around at them, feeling a wave of gratitude. He realized that his fear of complicating things had been unnecessary. Their concern wasn't judgmental. It wasn't about scandal or mistakes. It was about care, understanding, and connection. That realization was profound. Olivia moved to the couch and sat beside Ethan, maintaining a comfortable distance but close enough for reassurance. "You don't have to figure everything out tonight," she said. "You just have to start being honest with yourself and with people who care about you." Ethan nodded. He had always admired Olivia's ability to stay grounded and compassionate, to handle emotions without being overwhelmed. Her presence was steady, like a lighthouse in a storm. He had felt drawn to her before, not romantically, but in a way that spoke to his need for connection and understanding. Ava shifted in her seat, glancing between Ethan and Olivia. "You two have something special, and it's not complicated. It's understanding, caring, that's rare. And I think you're both lucky to have it." Mark finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "Ethan, what do you want? Not what you think is expected, not what you feel you should want. Just what do you want?" Ethan paused. He thought about the last year, about the loneliness he had carried, about the moments he had felt invisible even in a crowded room. He thought about the people in front of him who saw him, who listened, who cared. And for the first time in a long time, he felt clarity. "I want a life where I don't feel like a burden," he admitted softly. A life where I can be honest about who I am without fear or shame." Ava smiled, a quiet, knowing smile. "Then maybe it's time to start choosing the people who want you there, who don't see you as a burden." Ethan felt a warmth spread through him, a mixture of relief and hope. The storm outside had faded, leaving only the gentle drizzle. Just like the tension in the room had softened, leaving only understanding and possibility, Olivia reached out, brushing a stray strand of hair from his forehead. "You're not alone, Ethan. Not with us. We care about you. We always have." Mark nodded in agreement. "And we always will. You're part of this family, whether you realize it or not." Ava leaned forward slightly, her voice quiet but steady. "Sometimes the people who matter notice you in ways that surprise you. Pay attention to those moments. They mean more than you think." Ethan took a deep breath, letting the words sink in. He had walked into the house expecting only to help with the presentation. Instead, he found himself surrounded by honesty, care, and emotional support he hadn't realized he needed. For the first time in months, he felt grounded. The night moved slowly, but without hesitation. Conversation flowed naturally, alternating between lighthearted moments and deeper reflections. They talked about hopes, fears, and dreams. They laughed at small jokes and shared stories that revealed pieces of themselves rarely shown. Ethan realized that life didn't have to be complicated to be meaningful. Connection didn't have to be romantic to be profound. The presence of people who genuinely cared about him, who were willing to listen without judgment, was a gift he hadn't allowed himself to appreciate before. By the time the rain stopped completely, the living room felt like a safe haven. Ethan's heart felt lighter, as though the weight he had carried for so long had been acknowledged, understood, and softened by those around him. He glanced at each of them, Olivia's steady warmth, Mark's protective calm, Ava's unexpected insight, and felt gratitude he could barely put into words. The emotional storm had passed, leaving a clear, quiet space where connection, honesty, and understanding could grow. Ethan realized that this night had changed everything. Not in dramatic, life-altering ways. Not in ways that needed rushing or decisions. But in a quiet, subtle way that mattered most. He no longer felt invisible. He no longer felt alone. And he no longer had to pretend he was fine when he wasn't. The future was uncertain. There were questions still unanswered. Emotions still raw. But for the first time, Ethan felt he could face it with clarity, surrounded by people who cared deeply, and who allowed him to care in return. And as the lights dimmed and the city outside glimmered through wet windows, Ethan knew one thing for certain. He wasn't running anymore. He wasn't hiding. And the people in that room, with all their honesty and warmth, had given him a new beginning.